Contracts are one of the hardest sections on the real estate exam, and the way most people study contracts is exactly why they end up taking the test twice. Now, by the end of this video, you'll be answering contract questions faster than 90% of the people sitting next to you on the test day. My name is Robert Rico, and for the last 12 years, I've helped thousands, I'm talking thousands of people pass the real estate exam. Now, before I jump in, help us hit 100,000 subscribers. Click the subscribe button below to get more exam prep and career advice videos just like this one. Now, let's get into it. Quick note, this is exam prep, not legal advice. And real estate law varies by state, so always confirm specifics with your state's materials. Cool? All right, let's do it. Valid, void, and voidable. This is the most missed concept on the entire exam, so lock in. Valid, all four essentials present, everything's clean, enforceable, done. Void, dead on arrival. The contract never existed in the eyes of the law. The textbook example, any agreement for an illegal purpose. You can't enforce it. You can't revive it. It's void. Voidable, and this is where people go wrong, voidable means the contract is valid unless one party chooses to back out. Here's the example that locks it in. You sign a contract to buy a 4-bedroom house. At closing, you find out it actually is a 3-bedroom house. The 4th bedroom is a converted closet with no window. Is that a contract void, or is that a contract that's voidable? Voidable. Because you might actually be okay with it. Maybe the price still works for you. Maybe you didn't need that 4th bedroom anyway. You have the option to follow through. The seller broke their side of the deal, but you still get to choose. That's voidable. Same thing with duress. Somebody puts a gun to your head and forces you to sign. Most people assume that the contract is void. Nope. It's actually voidable. Because if you actually look at the deal and it turns out to be a great one, you still have the right to enforce it. So some major reasons for a contract to be voidable is duress, misrepresentation, fraud, undue influence, and contracts with minors. Now, some reasons that'll make a contract void are illegal purpose and missing an essential element entirely. Nice and easy. Good? Let's keep going. Now, let's talk about the 4 essentials of a valid contract. I want you to memorize these. Say them in your sleep. Number 1, capable parties. Number 2, lawful objective. Number 3, consideration. And number 4, offer and acceptance, also called mutual consent, or one of my favorites, a meeting of the minds. Now, this means capable parties at least 18 years old, of sound mind, and legally authorized to sign, whether that's on behalf of a corporation or under power of attorney. If a minor signs a contract, that contract is unenforceable. The exception, hold on, there is an exception here, an emancipated minor. Someone under 18 who's been granted adult legal status by a court can enter into a binding contract. Lawful object means the contract has to have a legal purpose. Any agreement for an illegal purpose, think a contract to sell stolen property, is void, not voidable. Void. If it's illegal, it is void. The law doesn't recognize it. No contract ever existed. Consideration means something of value being exchanged. Here's where the exam tries to trick you. The exam's going to try to trick you on this one. Consideration doesn't have to be money. It can be money, sure, but it can also be a service, another property, or even love and affection. Whoa. If you see consideration must be money on the exam, that's wrong. Offer and acceptance has to be specific. For example, I'll sell you my house for around, I don't know, $500,000 or so. That isn't a real offer. That's vague. A real offer is exact $500,000, period. If the numbers and the terms aren't nailed down, there's no real offer on the table. Earnest money deposit. Earnest money is a good faith deposit. The buyer puts it down to prove they're serious about following through. Think of it like any deposit you've ever put down. Reserve a hotel room, they put a hold on your credit card. Order custom furniture, they take a deposit. Same idea here. You're putting money on the table to prove you mean business and giving the other party something to hold if you bail out. Here's the part that shows up on the exams. If the buyer walks away for no valid reason after all contract conditions have been met, the seller typically keeps the earnest money. That's the whole point. It's a real consequence for backing out. If the deal falls through because of a legitimate contingency, financing, inspection, appraisal, well, the buyer usually gets it back. Read the contingencies carefully on every exam question. That's where the answer lives. Hey, real quick, if you want to study contracts the right way with active agents walking you through real world examples instead of dry textbooks, U.S. Realty Training has online courses and live training that do exactly that. It's called our Exam Prep and Crash Course Program. Tens of thousands of people have already used this program to get licensed. So if you hate studying or just want a fast and easy way to learn what you need to know, check it out. Links in the description and comment below. Assignment, novation, and specific performance. These are three definitions you need cold. Assignment, transferring your contract to someone else. The original party is still on the hook for liability unless novation happens. Novation, nova, is Latin for new. Novation is when a brand new contract is substituted for the old one and it releases the original party from liability. Assignment alone doesn't do that. Novation does. See nova on the exam? I want you to think new. Specific performance, a lawsuit where one party forces the other party to do what they agreed to do. Seller backs out of selling you the house, you can sue them to force the sale. It's between buyer and sellers. Brokers don't sue for specific performance. Rescission, the opposite of specific performance. Instead of forcing the deal, you cancel it and return everyone to their original position, like the contract never happened. Now, one more thing on counteroffers. Now, a counteroffer isn't a modification of the original offer. Legally, it's a brand new offer that terminates the original one. Once you counteroffer, you can't go back and accept the first offer. It's gone. Question number one, a 17-year-old who was legally emancipated by the court at the age of 16 signs a written agreement to lease an apartment for 18 months. After moving in, she changes her mind and tries to break the lease, arguing that she was a minor when she signed it. The landlord sues to enforce the lease. The contract is most likely A, void, because minors can't enter into a binding contract. B, voidable by the tenant because she was under 18 at signing. C, valid and enforceable because she was an emancipated minor and the lease was in writing. Or D, unenforceable because the statute of fraud requires leases under 1 year to be in writing. The answer is C. She's a capable party despite being under 18. Emancipation grants adult legal status for contract purposes. And the lease is over 1 year, so the statute of frauds is satisfied by the written agreement. Question number two, which of the following contracts would be classified as void rather than voidable? A, a purchase agreement signed by a 17-year-old who has not been emancipated. B, a listing agreement signed by a seller who was misled about the broker's commission rate. C, a purchase agreement signed under threat of physical violence. Or D, a contract where the agreed upon consideration is the buyer's promise to falsify property disclosure documents. The answer is D. Void means an essential element is missing or illegal. Voidable means an essential element is present but obtained through wrongful conduct. Question number three. A buyer puts down $15,000 of earnest money on a $500,000 home. Now, the contract includes a financing contingency and a 10-day inspection contingency. Pretty typical. On day 12, the inspector finds significant termite damage. The buyer decides to back out of the deal. Who is entitled to the earnest money? A, the seller, because the buyer failed to exercise the inspection contingency within the deadline. B, the seller, because the buyer is in breach of contract. C, the buyer, because the property had a material defect. Or D, split equally between buyer and seller due to the discovery of a defect. The answer is A. The inspection contingency expired on day 10. By day 12, the buyer can no longer use it to back out without breaching the contract. The seller keeps the earnest money deposit. Now, that's a typical scenario. Question number 4. Sarah, with an H, is a tenant on a 3-year lease with 1 year remaining. She's relocating for work and finds Mike, who's willing to take over the lease. Sarah, with an H, transfers all of her rights and obligations under the lease to Mike for the remaining year. And the landlord signs a written agreement releasing Sarah, with an H, from any future obligations. This is best described as A, a sublease, B, an assignment without novation, C, an assignment with novation, or D, a rescission. The answer is C. Sarah, with an H, transferred everything to Mike. That's an assignment. And the landlord signed an agreement releasing her from liability, which is novation. And you know that nova means new. When you have both, you have an assignment with novation. If you found this video helpful, be part of the 28% of people who are watching this and subscribe to the channel. Tap the subscribe button below to get notified when we release more content just like this video. Now that you know contracts, make sure you learn the next hardest thing on the real estate exam. What is it? Well, it's math. You can watch our math crash course right here, right there. You'll learn the fundamental concepts you should know to be safe taking the exam.